one of the things that I think of, if I had to go back, what I wish I would have done was travel more.
Hmm.
And I think that, I was very focused, and I think a lot of kids are very focused on like, what's next? Let's get to college. Let's do this. Let's do internships. Let's do all these things. And I just think that that is kind of the prime time of your life where you have the least amount of responsibilities and the most amount of freedom and the most amount of like, I'm going to stay at a hostel versus, a five-star
Hmm.
hotel or whatever is now a
Hmm.
requirement. But I really wish I would have saw the world more. I wish I would have taken time away from work, because I think that you have your lifetime to work and
Hmm.
to earn money and to work in your career and do all of that. And I wish I would have traveled more and
Hmm.
saw the world a little bit more when I didn't have a husband and two kids and two dogs and a mortgage and all of that. So
Yeah.
that's my gut instinct telling you, boy, and that's something that I would tell my kids too. I'm very clear on live life. You'll have forever to work, but experiences, I think, are what really make us um, who we are. And it also opens our mind so much more if we have more worldly experiences versus this path, this path, this path, go to work. And I
Yeah.
just think that this is a global world more now than ever. And
Hmm.
those experiences and those insights are not going to be learned in a classroom and only in your adventures. So
Yeah.
that's one of the first things that I would say.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice. People, I feel like, definitely get like, oh, I don't want to travel until I'm retired. And then that's like so far down the line when you could be experiencing things right now and like in your peak, I guess, prime, or when you have less of those bigger responsibilities. And people think, oh, you can do it when you're like 90, but then is it that easy to travel when you're 90?
Yeah, no, it's not. I think there's lots of ways to do it. I know that an affordability thing is always an issue, but I've known, kids that have, taken a year from college and have gone and have gotten temporary work permits. So they'll
Hmm.
work for a month to earn money, and then they'll go to another country, and then they'll work for a month and earn money. And so it's not just something where it's, oh, I'm just going to be laying on a beach for, 6 months or a year. These are like, get into it, understand the community, understand the culture, understand the economics of working and living and being, which I think is different than sometimes people think like, oh, take a year off and travel.
Yeah.
Or take a year
Hmm.
off, travel and work and really understand the culture and, see what it's like to live in a different country and
Yeah.
exist in a different country. So
Yeah, that's such an amazing kind of, I would say, alternative to just taking like kind of year and doing nothing. And people, I know a lot of people do tend to take gap years, and I feel like it's more common now, but they just really don't know. But I think that work permit thing is such an awesome idea. It sounds so cool. I mean,
yeah,
it's not something
I
I would
mean,
do, but
yeah,
I want
definitely
to.
get ton of stuff, but you
Hmm.
definitely can then really just, I mean, because those are your experiences, right? And like for me, if I look at someone and I go, wow, they traveled here, they traveled there, they worked here, like I would think incredibly resourceful, incredibly independent, not afraid, has the figure it out attitude, which I think as, as more generations come up and they all kind of have their persona, like that would really stick out to me as an employer and go, wow, I could plop them in a project, I could plop them anywhere, and they're resourceful and they're going to figure it out, because clearly going to another country and figuring out how to work and exist is massively mature. So
Yeah. Yeah.
think about, it's got more, it's got more zing in it than I think what most people think.
Yeah, I think you're so right. Definitely developing those different skills. And you mentioned the figure it out attitude. That is such an awesome attitude and skill to develop because it's not easy to be like, okay, I am in a completely foreign country. I don't know anyone. I don't know anything. I don't know how this works. I have to figure it out. And I mean, I've been to India before, and it's definitely like a completely different culture, and I
Yeah.
didn't work there or anything, but even then being there for like 2 weeks and being like, wow, everything is so different. They drive on the other side of the road. Like, there's
Yeah.
definitely things to figure out.
And I also think in this world these days, it also opens our minds up to other cultures and
Mm-hmm.
how they exist, and also a respect of them, which I think
Definitely.
sometimes can be massively lacking at this
Mm-hmm.
time. So,
Yeah. I think that's an amazing thing, especially there's so much more than people think. It's not just like shallowly just traveling and just going to like the beach and
Yeah,
just sitting there for the entire year. There's a lot more than people maybe realize.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Let me think about something else. So that's, that's for sure my top one.
Hmm.
What else do I wish I would have known? Um, for me, I would say, especially for a woman, I would say it's okay to fail. And when you fail, um, it's because you took more chances. So the risk of bigger reward is there, but there's also failure. But I don't think failure is a bad thing. I think it's absolutely how you learn. And I think when you make mistakes, it's how you learn. And I think sometimes we play it too safe.
Hmm.
Like, this is what is expected. This is what's next. This is the next trajectory. And I really wish I probably would have taken more chances or done some more different things. Um, I mean, I love the career I'm in, but it's really all I've ever done. And so for me, other than waitressing, um, but for me, really, understanding what it would be like to work in a corporate culture, understanding what it would be like to work, you know, in different roles for a business versus
Hmm.
just what I have done for 20 some years. So I think take more chances and don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Nobody likes the perfect girl.
Mm.
Well, they probably like them, but secretly they don't.
Yeah,
They like
definitely.
people who are real. They like people who are transparent. They like people that go, well, I certainly blew that. This is what I learned, and this is why it won't happen again, and this is how I fixed it, or whatever. I just think taking more chances and taking more risks will lead to potentially bigger reward and again, some of those experiences to really know what do you really like, what do you not like, what do you really excel at, what do you really not want to excel at. Make sense?
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Failing is such an important thing that people want to skip, but it's not something you can. But I feel like from those kind of failures, and I actually talked to someone today and she says don't use the word failure because it's kind of negative. So you use it as like
Yeah.
learning curves and experiences. And I think that's exactly it. It's just treated as an experience of like, wow, that was not fun. I should do this next time so I don't do that again.
Yeah, no, agree. And that's a great term. Like, yeah, it's not really failing, it's just making mistakes and being okay with the mistakes that you're making,
Hmm.
right? Like looking them as like stepping stones in a river that you have to cross to get to the other side. So I think, yes,
Yeah.
taking more risks, taking
Hmm.
more chances.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So that's probably number two. Number three that I wish I would have known was um, business relationships, work relationships. Um, I feel like if they're not important to me, I let some of them go because it took work or I didn't have time.
Mm.
So just remembering that some of those relationships that you forge early on in a business or with an employer or with coworkers, you never know where those people are going to land. You never know who someday could be your peer and could be your boss down the road. And I just think always really making sure that you leave, if you ever leave employment, leave on a high note, but
Hmm.
really never letting, of those relationships that I think are important. And there's always ones at every employer, there's always those, kind of relationships that are like, you really liked them, they were good mentors, and just not letting them go because you're busy.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know, I think having those lifelong relationships with mentors or people that had impact um, will take you a long way. And as they grow, you will grow. And just maintaining those relationships, even though it might take work on your part, is very rewarding and very just important, you
Yeah,
know?
definitely. I'm definitely guilty of that, of feeling like, oh, this relationship seems like a lot of work and I don't really want to maintain it. And then, but people don't realize there's so much things that you can get. Maybe you don't see the value right now, but who knows what they might know,
Exactly.
how they might help years in the future, and you're not really thinking of the future, but you should. And there's no reason to let relationships fall, especially when it can be easier to maintain than you may realize. But I think that is such an important thing to remember.
Yeah. So I think about like, oh my gosh, all the people that I used to work with at certain companies that I worked with that once I left, we stayed connected for a little bit, but then, kind of poof and gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that was really short-sighted of my younger self.
Sure.
And not for always necessarily a business standpoint. For some, some definitely, I was like, man, that would have been a great relationship for me to stay connected to, because it definitely could have paid dividends for me down the road. But more importantly, just because as people grow, they add different parts to your education and your experience and that relationship. And if you don't work hard to maintain it, or you're okay with letting it go because you're busy, I mean, I think as I'm older and I look back, relationships are probably the most important thing and add the most amount of positivity and I don't know, positivity, but the most amount of fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's many times where you kind of get a text from somebody, or a, instant message, a DM or something like that. It's like, man, like, why did we lose touch? Because we shouldn't have. We were such great friends, or you were on this trajectory and I was on this trajectory, but man, could we have learned from each other? I just think really maintaining relationships, as a young person, you don't necessarily think that, but as you evolve, that's one of the, I don't want to say regrets, but one of the things I really wish I would have known and paid more attention to as I went along.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, that's an amazing thing. It's not something that I feel like I've talked to people about, but I think that is such the most important thing in your life to do. Especially, it's so easy on social media to like just send someone a DM, be like, "Hey, I'm thinking of you," or a text message or something like
Exactly.
that. It's so much easier nowadays. So there's no reason why you shouldn't put in that extra few minutes of your life to type out something quick and send it over.
Exactly. And I think